What is up guys, Morton here from SteamFirst.com with a review for Spy Chameleon RGB Agent, a puzzle game developed by Unfinished Pixel and released June 11th, 2014 on Steam for $5. Spy Chameleon RGB Agent is a puzzle game, but it's also a stealth-oriented game. You play as a chameleon and have to navigate through rooms while avoiding being spotted by cameras, most of which move around and require you to act quickly so you don't get caught. The mechanic that separates the game from ones like it is a color switching mechanic. You're a chameleon, so you can change colors so that the cameras can't see you. Basically, this just means if there's a red carpet on the ground, you need to change your color to red, and then you can stand on it without being seen. It's interesting for a bit, but it gets pretty redundant pretty quickly. It's the only real mechanic other than running around, and there's only 4 colors and never any real challenge or thought. For a puzzle game, it's incredibly straightforward. If there's a rug or paint that's a certain color, you change yourself to that color and then continue, and that's kind of all there is to it. Each level has 3 objectives. One is to collect all the flies on the stage. This is pretty easy because they're generally laid out in the way you'd go anyway, so you don't really need to go out of your way to get them. The second objective is to get all the ladybugs. These are usually out of your way and are a bit more difficult, but still not all that hard. And the last objective is time-based, which you'll usually get first try anyway, but the thing is, you can't collect the ladybugs until you've already completed the stage. So it forces you to play every level at least twice in order to collect everything. Sometimes you'll need to play the level a third time too in order to beat it fast enough, which just feels like a chore more than anything else. And that's kind of a good way to describe the levels in general. They're fun at the start, but one gameplay mechanic can't carry a game all the way through. It's not bad, but the levels aren't very difficult and don't require much thought, and making us play them 2 or more times isn't doing the game any favors. Oddly enough though, you can skip levels. In fact, you can skip almost all the levels in the game if you want to. I never quite understood that mechanic. Paying for a game and then skipping all the content doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Anyway, another thing that struck me as interesting about this game is that it recommends using a gamepad to play it, and I sometimes take that as a challenge. It's a PC game, so it should be playable with a keyboard and mouse, and honestly, it works perfectly fine with a keyboard, so I think the game kind of does itself a disservice by recommending a gamepad. You move with WASD, and then you switch colors with UIOP. Now admittedly, switching colors is kind of awkward at first because those aren't normal keys to use for anything, but after a few levels it feels a lot better, and it's not all that fast paced, so you don't need to worry about quickly switching between colors. Overall, the gameplay isn't terrible, it just really isn't all that fun either. After a while it starts to get pretty redundant, the levels don't have all that much variety, and with only one mechanic it's pretty easy. But that being said, I think the game would be great for kids, because they'll have a harder time with the gameplay, and replaying the same levels over and over might be more tolerable if you do it spread out over days instead of playing the whole game in about an hour. By the way, the game's only an hour or so long unless you try to get all the achievements. Gameplay gets a 3 out of 5. It certainly could have been a lot worse, but at the same time it gets old pretty quickly. Graphics are another reason I think the game would be good for kids. The art is very cartoony. Now this isn't bad, in fact I actually really like the graphics. I think it looks perfect for the style of game it is. Everything is easy to distinguish, it's also simple to tell where the cameras are facing and what color you should be. The graphics get a 5 out of 5, I really can't think of anything to complain about with the graphics, they're ideal for this game. The audio is also really good, it's pretty fast paced and fun and it changes up after every level, so you aren't stuck listening to the same song over and over for levels at a time. It's the same style of music throughout the game, but each song is different and it doesn't get repetitive unless you're stuck on the same level for a long time, and even then the song doesn't restart when you mess up, so you'll eventually get through it. Sound gets a 4.5 out of 5. While the soundtrack is great, the noise the chameleon makes when he switches colors gets kind of annoying when you're forced to switch colors frequently on some of the stages. As for replayability, there's quite a bit. It's basically just like most indie games, in that the levels are timed, so you're just competing with other people or yourself to see who can complete them the fastest. It's actually a pretty good game from a speedrunning standpoint. There's also achievements to get all the ladybugs or to complete all the levels fast and things of that nature, so if you're a completionist, there's definitely things to do even after you complete the game for the first time. Replayability gets a 4 out of 5. If you're the type of person that gets bored doing the same thing over and over, you won't enjoy the replayability this game has to offer, but if you enjoy competing against yourself for the fastest times, or collecting achievements, there's a lot to do. I didn't mention a story simply because there isn't one. You're a chameleon, you walk through rooms, and that's about it. There's a couple of reasons to do things here and there, but I didn't bother paying attention to it because they put in absolutely no effort to try to make it relevant. Overall though, Spy Chameleon RGB Agent is a decent puzzle game, but it's far from great. It's very short, clocking in at just over an hour, and with only one mechanic, it gets boring even before it ends. All the puzzles just have one solution, which is to be the right color at the right time, and after 50 levels, you pretty much don't need to think about it anymore. But because it's so short, it's hard to really be that bothered by the repetitiveness. Spy Chameleon RGB Agent gets a 3.5 out of 5 overall. If there was more variety in gameplay or more difficult challenges, I think it would be a lot more fun. but for only $5, it's worth playing if you'll enjoy trying to get all the achievements, or if you're looking for a good game for kids.